Well, guys, I guess we all predicted this, but I didn't really expect it to happen this fast. I thought it would take at least a month to really start hitting, but here we are, only 9 days in, and egg prices in America are the highest they have ever been in history. Literally ever. And guess what? They're not going down anytime soon. In fact, they're going to keep going up. To learn more, egg prices are likely to shoot up even more in 2025. Here's what to know. You know what was so funny to me about this story and the fact that this is getting so much attention? The egg prices were what everyone focused on to try and attack Biden's economy. Now, for those unaware, Biden was actually, without a doubt, the best in regards to economic policy president America has ever had. And I know that sounds like a crazy thing to say because Biden also presided over what most Americans would rate as the lowest, years for them in terms of their personal success and hope for the future. And so it's really hard to sell people on the reality that Biden was actually unprecedentedly great when it came to his economic policy. We saw record low unemployment. We saw record high wages. Like everything across the board, besides prices for things, was at an all-time best under Biden. But the prices were still high. And what better to point to as an example than eggs? Now, Biden was not the fault of said high prices, to be very clear. Every single country in the world, due to COVID and due to just general conflict that was happening in the world, notably Russia invading Ukraine, we saw a massive spike in global inflation, meaning that the entire world experienced parallel, near identical inflation. And in America, we actually responded to it better than the vast majority of countries did. Wages rose, social safety net programs were put into place and were acted upon that saved millions of Americans' livelihood. I can't show it anymore because Trump has taken it down off of the White House website, but back when Biden was in office, something I like to do to point this out was I would bring up his White House website, Biden's White House website, and you could go to the American Rescue Plan, or the ARP. You can still look up the American Rescue Plan now and probably see what it was all about, but if you went to the American Rescue Plan page on the White House website, it had a bunch of little pop-ups, like questions. Are you having trouble affording rent? Can you not afford a medical bill? Can you not afford groceries? Are you having trouble finding a job? Are you having trouble finding housing? And then, go down the list, right? It went for, another 12 different things, and if you had any of those problems, you could click the card, and the card would flip, and you would have a list of things that you could do, links and numbers you could call. So, for example, if you were having food insecurity problems, there was a link for SNAP, there was a link for food stamps, there was a link for, I forget what the program was called, but when you could sign up with where, Biden's federal government would pay for, $600 of groceries per, month or something like that. Not a lot, but, it could be life-saving. Even if you have, a four-person family, $600 a month in groceries is, big deal. It's a help. It won't cover everything, but it'll help. So yeah, it's these programs are now gone, and people didn't like to recognize that they existed, but the fact was Biden presided over a great economy, and in order to counter that reality and to distract people from that being the truth, one of the biggest things that right-wing pundits focused on was how cheap groceries, particularly eggs, were in, say, Russia, or other countries that are, very dick-ridden by MAGA, where they don't have prices that are, equivalent to America's prices. In Russia, they've got much lower wages in America, and so things cost way less than they do in America. So as an American, if you look at a Russian grocery store and you find out you can buy, a box of cereal for 40 cents USD or something like that, that sounds insane. That's crazy to you as an American, because you would assume that if you moved to Russia and you got a job there, you would still make the equivalent of as much money as you make now, when in reality you would be making a fraction of what you're making now, and you would be paying like the same percentage-wise equivalent of your wage for that. You would have to maintain a USD American income if you wanted to live in a place like Russia and benefit from those low prices. But people still watch, say, Tucker Carlson tore a grocery store in Russia and fell for the idea that look how low these prices are, with no acknowledgement whatsoever of the fact that Russia's average wage is substantially lower than America, and that's why all their groceries are cheaper, because if they weren't cheaper, nobody in Russia could afford them. And so a lot of Americans are fully unaware of localized pricing to account for local wages. They don't know that. And so even if they are aware of the fact that certain things convert based on the currency, they aren't aware of the fact that you still have to account for how much people in an area are making when you see a place has lower cost of living, right? But they still fall for these ideas. So the idea that eggs were expensive was such an important point, so hammered home on, so heavily. And that is why these spiking egg prices, we're gonna go hard on this shit. Guys, if you're a lefty and you're watching this, I heard something recently from a chatter, and I loved it. And so I'm going to reiterate it to you guys, because I heard it last stream. Right now, Trump is working to tariff Colombia in retaliation for not taking a bunch of accused illegal immigrants that he decided he was just going to drop off there without permission. And so Trump, in retaliation, wants to tariff the fuck out of Colombia. A lot of American coffee comes from Colombia. Our coffee beans almost all come from there, which means coffee is about to get a lot more expensive because it's going to be us paying the tax on those imports. Eggs are already getting more expensive, and that's not even accounting for tariffs. Like, these are eggs that were probably produced in America. They're being affected by a different thing that we're going to be getting into in a minute, but this is just a factor of Trump's presidency. What I heard was that we should call it the war on breakfast. Because we're 9 days into Trump's presidency, and the cost of eggs and coffee, two of the most reliably affordable and go-to American breakfast, like, staples, have now spiked in price to the point where you might just choose not to buy them. Like, eggs and coffee are about to... Coffee maybe hasn't been hit by it yet, because I don't know if Trump has passed the tariff, but eggs, damn sure. I know some people that are like, dude, I'm not buying eggs. Now, I have seen this to a degree, but I have yet to see the news covering it. And I am curious to ask you guys if you have seen it as well. Hypers in chat, if you have been to the grocery store in the last 3 days and you've had a hard time finding certain produce. Because I went to the grocery store yesterday and there was no spinach. Like, none. Is this just me? Or is this also something you guys are seeing? Do not lie or exaggerate. I am curious to know if it's just my store had all the spinach bought out and there weren't a lot of produce on the shelves in my store, or if you guys are also seeing a significant shortage of produce on your shelves. Haven't seen that? $9 for eggs where I live? Oof. Haven't noticed yet? Okay, well, keep an eye out for that. See if you start... I have... Okay, my buddy Ethan has, and I have as well, where it seems like there is notably less produce on the shelves. And the reason why I bring this up, it was $11 for eggs yesterday. Jesus, for a dozen. Which kind? Pasture or, pasture or stable, cage-free? Damn. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, those are always going to be a bit more expensive, but that's still really expensive. The $9 eggs are probably the like, typical, like, just cage-raised eggs are probably about $9 right now, which is insane, because those are supposed to be, like, the cheapest, easy-to-get, go-to, easy protein, cheap, affordable eggs that you could get your hands on. Spinach is out of season currently. Okay, maybe it's just that spinach is out of season, but I will point out, And I highly recommend that you guys be ready for what I described, a massive shortage in produce on the shelves, because farmers have been warning about this. Let me see if I can find a video or an article on this. A Trump voting farmer's warning. Mass deportations would be a disaster. Florida tomato grower. Yeah, I accept your terms of service. Before it's here, get to Bloomberg terminal? On the Bloomberg terminal. What? No. What? Is Bloomberg paywalled? Can I not read this article? It's paywalled, isn't it? It's paywalled. Yeah, it's paywalled. Damn. Okay, that was a good article. It's paywalled. Yeah, I think we're probably, like, doomed as a civilization if, like, paywalling news and information is becoming more and more the norm like it is. I've been worrying about that for years. Like, as more articles I click on to read about news are paywalled when they're not from... Like, all the good sources of news paywall their news. The truthful sources of news paywall their shit. Right-wing misinfo merchants never paywall their shit because they want as many people as possible to see it. Dude. Canadian farmers warn. Wait, no, that's not related to what we're reading about. Well, alright. Well, cringe. I wanted to bring up an article about the labor shortage on farms, but I guess we'll just have to live it, and when all of the media is talking about it, it'll be far easier to find articles about it. So you guys can just be like, oh shit, the thing Zan warned us about is happening, when it does. At market basket locations in some parts of Massachusetts, customers are being asked to limit their egg purchases to 2 cartons per family. Another shopper on the hunt for eggs, this one in Las Vegas, reported finding empty shelves at a local grocery store. On social media, a consumer accustomed to paying around $2 for a dozen eggs expressed shock over having to pay more than double that amount. Bro, $2, only $4 for a carton of eggs right now? Like, apparently there are some areas where people are getting off quite easy. Maybe there's just a lot of eggs being produced in their local area, but even they're getting affected by a 100% rise in price on eggs. But generally, like, you gotta pay like $5, $6 for a carton of eggs on a good day when you live, like, in the city. Even in, like, rural Florida, you had to pay, like, $4.50 for, like, a shitty carton of eggs. You know, the white eggs that aren't all organic or whatever they're marketed as being. Egg restrictions, shortages, and record high prices are ruffling feathers at supermarkets across the U.S. as a deadly strain of avian flu continues to decimate the country's poultry flocks. So, we actually, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but we've been worried about what impact this is going to have when Trump takes office, because Trump, for those who don't know, has actually been, like, one of the most prominent anti-vaxxers for the longest time. There was, you might remember, back in the much less dark days, being anti-vax was something that people were ashamed of. If someone had a platform or anything to lose, if they were anti-vax, they were not generally open about it unless their goal was to fully market towards, like, insane conspiracy theorists. There was literally few groups that the internet detested more than anti-vax parents as well. But you'll have noticed that nowadays, it is expected, it is the standard to be anti-vax if you're going to be conservative. It is the line you must toe, is to be anti-vax. But Trump, back when anti-vax was considered very bad, had to dodge the allegation initially, before it was really, you know, the right was really ready to embrace it just yet. Target near me has eggs for $4 for 12, but none left? Oh, damn. Well, thank you for the $2, SC. I appreciate that. That's half a carton of eggs right there, where you are. Thanks. Sorry that there's no eggs left, though. It seems like that's contributing to the issue. We've been worried about this because Trump has gone from suggesting that we need to reduce the amount of vaccines that kids are getting, which was back in, like, 2017 he said that, and people accused him of being anti-vax after that, and he vehemently denied the allegation he was anti-vax, because back then being anti-vax was a bad look, okay? And nowadays, Trump is actively promising and is going to take action to defund any public school that mandates their students to get vaccinated at all. Not just the COVID vaccine, any vaccine. Either they do not mandate their kids get vaccinated, their students be vaccinated before they can attend, or they lose all of their federal funding, meaning they have to shut down. Which means one of the biggest concerns going into Trump's presidency has been the spread of disease and the effect that outbreaks of all kinds are going to have on our quality of life. You got to remember, it's not even just human diseases we have to be afraid of, but animal spreading diseases that might wipe out millions or tens of millions of cows, chickens, pigs, and other animals, all the while tens of millions of tons of crops rot in the fields because there's not enough people to work the labor of picking them, because we don't have any immigrant labor for these jobs that native-born Americans refuse to do. And so we're quickly going to descend into a situation where meat and eggs are overpriced and low supply, and vegetables and fruits, and of course you can only assume things like mushrooms as well, like fungus, are going to be even more in short supply. The only industry I can imagine that won't be too heavily impacted in the world of food might be fish. I don't know how many like federal fishers there are that are responsible for fishing, but like all the while the FDA is run by RFK, okay? RFK has literally had part of his brain eaten by a worm, and the only good thing I've heard him say is that he wants to, and this is actually a good thing, if he follows through on this, it could be pretty good. He has talked about how bad America's heavy inclusion of high fructose corn syrup is in our food. As much as I like that he said that, and I agree with what he said, and I hope that he acts on that and starts like banning and reducing the amount of high fructose corn syrup in our sugary foods, because it would be a big benefit, like a big W for America in general if we did that. I don't think we're going to follow through on that, considering the fact that Republicans have been the biggest providers of subsidies to corn farmers ever. The corn industry is massive. Corn syrup is massive. It is a huge industry. These CEOs are very much like buddied up with Trump and his administration. I doubt that RFK is actually going to follow through and like ban high fructose corn syrup. But people have pointed to him saying that as an example of why they're excited that he's going to be in charge of the FDA. And granted, if I thought he was going to do that, if I thought that was the kind of guy he is, then I wouldn't be too upset about him being the one in charge. But overall, the guy's just like actually not there. Like, I don't even know if that was a quote he said, knowing that that was a thing he meant to say. It might have been him reading a script. So at the end of the day, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I would genuinely brace for, like, every time you eat something you bought at the grocery store here, you are 50-50 rolling dice on whether or not you're going to be, like, getting food poisoning from it. These are scary times. The apparatus, every apparatus under which we live, is controlled by people that disagree with reality, or disagree with acknowledging reality. That's scary for the rest of us, because we have to live in their world now. Egg restrictions, shortages, and record high prices are ruffling feathers at supermarkets across the U.S. as a deadly strain of avian flu continues to decimate the country's poultry flocks. And you got to keep in mind, it's not just human disease, it's animal diseases that could wipe out tons of animals. There could be outbreaks of plant diseases that wipe out crops, all the while what we do have available to pick doesn't have enough labor to be picked. These are scary times. We're 9 days in, and supplies are drying up. Prices are skyrocketing. Farmers are panicking. Experts are worrying. Things are already scary, and we're 9 days in. You know what would be really funny? If Trump nuked our global and just international trade so badly that America reverted back to all business being done on a local level. Like, none of us have electricity anymore in this scenario, obviously, or internet. But insofar as our food and our water and our housing, it would all be sourced locally. We'd basically just go back to, like, the medieval age. I'm gonna be real, guys. Like, I'm getting to the point now where Trump is so quickly accelerating America towards utter destruction that I cannot speculate on the future without it sounding like the plot for a apocalypse movie. And I feel like I must sound LARPy, but, like, if you've watched me for a long time, you know I'm not one to doomer. I'm not one to LARP. I am just telling you right now, I don't know how it doesn't end up at these scenarios based on what direction we're heading in now. These are scary times. Still in shock from the plane crash thing? I'm scared that's going to be the new norm of flying because of how much lack of work there is now in that industry. I think eggs have felt relatively extreme over the past few months, Kip Green, co-owner and general manager of Montague Diner in Brooklyn, New York, told CBS News. We're fortunate enough we have a great relationship with our purveyors, with farmers, so everybody is trying to help each other out, which is lovely. That's nice to know that at least some restaurants and businesses are, like, doing what they can to manage this supply shortage. As at most diners, Montague uses hundreds of eggs a day, according to Green. Whether served as part of a classic breakfast plate alongside potatoes and toast or an egg salad sandwich, eggs comprise 40% to 50% of the restaurant's menu, she said. Quote, I mean, it's like there's some things that you might not even think about, like in our pancake batter or like in our French toast batter, like just things like that. We still use so many eggs. I like how these are direct quotes, and so you're hearing all the likes and the ums and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there are so many areas in which no one has even thought about how Trump's presidency is going to impact us. What's going to be scary is, like, are we ready for the rolling internet and power outages? Have y'all considered that? That under Trump, the shit that's normal in red states is only going to become normal over the entire country, and it's going to become worse. And if you've ever lived in a red state, then you're probably very used to rolling blackouts. Hypers in chat if you've been there. And all the blue state livers are probably like, what? In red states, it is normal to just be on a perfectly clear, normal day, just sitting at home, and all of a sudden the power goes out. There is so little funding or care put into the infrastructure in conservative states, such as Florida, where I grew up, that the infrastructure regularly fails for no reason out of nowhere, because they never take proactive measures because there's not enough funding allocated to take proactive measures to take care of infrastructure. So it is only ever repaired once it fails. And once it fails, always entails... God, I'm such a fucking rapper sometimes, man. Always entails hours of sitting without power, internet, or some other service, maybe even water, because it's not unusual to just be dry. It's for all of a sudden you have no water. Like, what? There's no water. What the hell? And you drive a couple of blocks and see that there is an entire team working on a busted pipe that is blasting a geyser of water into the air because they haven't replaced the pipe in 60 years, and they don't replace the pipes until they fail. That is true of the power infrastructure, the road infrastructure, the internet infrastructure. Well, it's private. Internet infrastructure is privatized, but still, like I said, they're not regulated, so they are very lax on how much they take care of it. All of these factors are such a huge issue when you live in a red state that it becomes a normal thing about life, that you just get used to the no-reason blackouts, the no-reason internet outages, the no-reason water outages, the fact that, like, it is normal for you to turn onto a road and for it to look like something out of, like, you know those roads you'll walk on in Fallout New Vegas, like the main roads you take, the highways? It is normal to turn off of a main road onto a side street and for it to look like the main road in Fallout New Vegas, all broken up and nuked and torn up and like 100 years old. That is normal in red states because no effort, money, funding, or desire is put into improving services that help everyone. Because most of the people who elect that kind of person don't care about anyone else. They only want to enrich and take care of themselves. They want to pay nothing into a system that helps everyone, including them. And they absolutely, when they elect these people, do not elect those that would actually put these systems into place, allocate funding properly. And so if you live in a red state, that is the norm. But if you've lived in a blue state, the things I've been describing being like a regular, like at least weekly thing must sound crazy. Like literally last night, a friend of mine that's in Texas had a power outage because it started raining. And it was like, my power's out. I'm on my phone. It's like, you're still in Texas, bro. I'm sorry. You got to get out of there. Because it's just normal if you live in, like, say, Houston, Texas, or Austin, Texas. Less so Austin, but definitely, like, Houston, Galveston, and whatnot. If it rains, your power goes out all day. And when it goes out, like in the most recent instance of a big hurricane hitting Texas, when your power goes out, it's out for weeks. Weeks. They take weeks to get it back on. A week minimum. This is the norm of living in a red state because so little funding goes into these important, helps everybody and keeps our way of life, our quality of life, what we expect and have gotten used to. All these things have now lost their funding, and it doesn't matter what state you live in now. Get used to the idea of what we've that lived in red states had to deal with being what you have to deal with too now. Texas has its own grid. They're notorious for having a bad grid. Yes, well, that's a great example of what I'm talking about here. Texas's grid is a great example of what Republicans running a system looks like. Look at the Texas power grid, a system built and run by Republicans. And look how awful it is, how much it fails, how bad the response time to repair is. Imagine those people now control our entire country's power grid on a federal level now. The Republicans fundamentally don't know how to govern. And all the while, all these problems are going to get blamed on Democrats. That is their only defense, is to redirect people's attention away from them and their fuck-ups towards the Democrats for some generally made-up, imagined fuck-up. Like, for example, I recently saw conservatives complaining that Biden was busy enforcing DEI policies instead of fixing the roads. Meanwhile, Biden passed the biggest, literally the biggest infrastructure funding bill in American history. Biden and Kamala Harris signed it and passed it together. It had their names on it. Like, dude. I'm very concerned for the cities near nuclear power plants. That I wouldn't be too concerned about because nuclear power plants have a lot of fail-safes nowadays that make them way safer than they used to be. Nuclear power plant meltdowns that cause massive damage happen in other countries because, well, granted, new power plants made under Trump might be bad. These power plants that we have in America, for the most part, were built with fail-safes that would, like, every human on Earth could blink out of existence. And I think every American power plant would be able to shut down harmlessly and completely fine on its own when it needs to, and nothing bad would happen. Like it would just shut itself down automatically after a person hasn't interacted with it after a certain amount of time, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about nuclear reactors being a problem. I'd worry more about nuclear weapons. But keeping things on topic, things are going to get a lot more expensive, but the start is eggs. Next, it's going to be coffee. And it'd be really funny if bacon followed, but for these reasons, we shall call it Trump's War on Breakfast. Good luck out there, guys. I'm quite the breakfast guy. I love eggs, bacon, and hash browns. That shit is like the ultimate combo for me. Makes my mouth water every time. So, the fact that America is losing out on its iconic breakfast Grand Slam arrangement, it's disgusting. This is the war on breakfast, people, okay? The war on breakfast is real. They hate America, they hate what America stands for, and they don't want you to enjoy a nice breakfast with some eggs and coffee in the morning. They have to take everything from you. You have to go to work, you have to work yourself to death because retirement is becoming less and less likely for Americans with each passing day, and all the while, you don't get to have eggs and coffee before work in the morning. That is what Trump has done to you, my fellow Americans. Maybe I should just start doing all my videos like that. I have no doubt they would probably be more persuasive to the target audience of my persuasive videos. Regardless, though, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable, then please consider leaving a like, a comment, or perhaps even subscribe through the sub button down below, and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. Remember, likes and comments help immensely, especially when you're watching live on my live streams. Leaving those helps a lot. I really do appreciate it, so thank you to everybody who's done that. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, be sure to follow my social medias linked down below in the description, including, of course, my Discord and my Blue Sky. And finally, if you want to support me directly, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then I would immensely appreciate if you would if you would donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or help me by donating through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buying some merch to the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, it really does help a ton, and I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me. And as always, regardless of how you support me, I hope you have a good one, and I hope to see you again.